We continue our preview of every team going to the World Cup, and we're now in Group C with the team from Pot 2, which is Mexico. Now, Mexico's a team that actually inhabits a very unique space in the international footballing world. Everybody acknowledges they're good, and nobody actually thinks of them as a threat to potentially win the entire World Cup. Now, there's a reason for that, but another reason for that is the fact that the qualifying wasn't as smooth as Mexico would have you believe. World Cup qualifying in CONCACAF, which is North, Central America, and the Caribbean, actually expanded from 6 to 8 teams in the final stage this year, which means you had to play 14 games. Now, Mexico won 8 of them. They ended up 3 points away from the trouble zone, which is the intercontinental playoff that Costa Rica ended up going to. But in order to make this look more comfortable than it actually was, Mexico won 3 of its last 4 matches against Panama, Honduras, and El Salvador. Mexico also didn't concede in its final 5 matches, including 2 0-0 draws, one with the United States, the other with Costa Rica, who also ended up making the World Cup. For whatever it's worth, their last loss was to Canada in a very exciting game in November 2021, away that was covered in snow, essentially. But Mexico had to battle late to pull itself into automatic qualifying position, and they need to qualify for the World Cup because they are currently trying to maintain one of the most ridiculous records you have ever seen in sports. See, despite the fact that Mexico has had all sorts of drama qualifying for the World Cup in recent years, back in 2014, the United States scored a goal that essentially saved Mexico's qualifying hopes entirely. Only Mexico had been able to return the favor in 2018. Those that didn't know, if Mexico had scored 1 more goal, the United States would have been able to go to the World Cup. But of course that didn't happen. Why? We scratch your back, you scratch ours, and we both are allowed to lose to teams we shouldn't lose to, and it's just part of the deal. I'm getting off topic though. So when you look at Mexico's history at the World Cup, now that it's qualified again, and of course it's a top 16 team in the world, so it's coming out of pot 2, Mexico has finished at the exact same point in every World Cup since 1994. Every single one. 94, 98, 2002, 2006, 2010, 2014, 2018, probably 2022 as well. Mexico has been eliminated from the World Cup in exactly the round of 16 in every single one of those World Cups. Not in the group stage, not in the quarterfinals or anywhere past there. The round of 16. 7 straight times. I looked it up, and this is not an easy thing to look up. It is the most consistent result in the history of the World Cup. The most consistent finish ever. Seriously, there's a Wikipedia page for list of FIFA World Cup records and statistics that has most consecutive results by the same team as round of 16, Mexico 7. Oh, by the way, while you're on this list, Mexico also has the most appearances without winning a title and the most appearances without reaching a final. Mexico has been to 16, soon to be 17 World Cups. A great accomplishment. Mexico has only missed 3 World Cups since 1950, and one of them, it was banned, so it's only failed to qualify for 2. That's incredibly impressive. Because of 2 of those, the last time Mexico got knocked out in the group stage was 1978. I'm about to give you something you absolutely didn't ask for. Every team Mexico's lost to in the last 7 World Cups. Here we go. 1994, Bulgaria on penalties. Harsh decision. 1998, Germany. 2-1. 2002, the United States actually, 2-0. Don't worry, we went on to lose to Germany in the next round, but got them. 2006, Argentina in extra time. Cruel. 2010, Argentina again, more convincingly, 3-1. 2014, the Netherlands, 2-1. And in 2018, Brazil. Tough draw, 2-0. But just so you know what happened at the last World Cup, Mexico made it out of the group in 2nd place behind Sweden, of course. Germany ended up finishing last in the group because Mexico beat Germany and South Korea en route to qualifying. Fortunately for Mexico, its history in continental competitions is much more successful, as you might expect from a nation that is in one of the lesser continents that has got such a rich footballing history. In fact, Mexico has hosted the World Cup more than any other country. Or should I say, will, in 2026 when it hosts it jointly for the 3rd time. Well, Mexico has won 11 Gold Cup championships, and that is the CONCACAF overall title. It's won 4 of the last 7 as well, and this is usually a duopoly between the United States and Mexico to begin with. But important to note, in 2021, the United States won the Gold Cup final 1-0 after extra time. Mexico also lost the Nations League final in extra time against the United States again. This really comes down to an inability to score against good teams. Assuming the United States counts as a good team in your mind, the last 3 times Mexico has played the US, it has not scored. This is the Gold Cup final and both World Cup qualifying matches, which were a 0-0 draw and a 2-0 defeat for Mexico. Mexico scored 1 goal in 180 minutes against Costa Rica, who's going to the World Cup, and against Canada, Mexico actually scored 2 goals over the 180 minutes against them. But of course, they lost one match and drew the other. Now, with this noted inability to score, you might assume that the player to watch on Mexico is going to be a forward. That's actually not the case. I'm going to pick the player that's probably the reason Mexico doesn't give up a lot of goals, and that would be a player that might be gracing the news headlines where you live, and that's Edson Alvarez of Ajax. Now, Edson Alvarez has a fabulous nickname, El Machine. I'm pretty sure you can figure out what that means. Now, the way Mexico lines up, Alvarez ends up right in the middle of the midfield. He's the type of workhorse, box-to-box player that's got the right kind of size and physicality to put multiple people in his pocket and run laps around teams, not just with speed, but also with strength. He also comes with the prerequisite Mexican technical ability to handle tight spaces and deliver accurate passes. He's currently wanted by Chelsea and Barcelona, who I have no idea how Barcelona has enough money to attempt to go for him, but they just seem to find more all the time. The main point for Edson Alvarez is he's a player whose career is on the rise. This is his first World Cup where he is at his apex, drawing interest from some of the biggest clubs in the world. If Mexico is going to win, it's clearly not going to score its way there, given the inability to score consistently against good teams. They're gonna have to stop other teams, and they're gonna have to start with the man right in the middle of their 3-man midfield. And I know what you're thinking. Does that mean it's a 4-3-3? Yes, you're thinking correctly. Oh, would you look at that formation? That's the Twitch channel where I'm going to be streaming watch-alongs to every World Cup match. Wow. If only there was some way for people to find out about that, and the fact that the link is in the description. Crazy. Mexico uses a 4-3-3 all the time. Here's a breakdown of their tactic playing against the United States in a crucial World Cup qualifier at home in Mexico City. Now, the front line not producing goals is a pretty big surprise. Jesus Corona on the right wing plays for Sevilla. Raul Jimenez is a Premier League quality center forward, and Irving Lozano plays in Serie A. Now, Lozano might be on the outs at Napoli, we will see, but he continues to play regularly in Italy. Then you have Edson Alvarez in the middle, flanked by an aging Hector Herrera, who's got one good run left in him. The unusual thing for Mexico is a normally very staunch back line is a little weaker than you'd expect. Similar to the United States, there doesn't seem to be a preponderance of world-class center backs falling out of CONCACAF for anybody. Mexico seems to rely on a predominantly Liga MX back line, which makes Edson Alvarez even more important screening in front of them. Now, Johan Vasquez does play in Serie A, but not at the top level, and in other important matches, he has not been preferred, particularly in recent friendlies as well. They opt instead for Cesar Montes or Hector Moreno. They're familiar faces in the national setup that play in a pretty good league, but it's a whole different level when you're coming up against whatever Argentina is going to throw at you. One thing's for certain is that Tata Martino is certainly not as set on exactly what his back line is going to be, even though he's a very good head coach. So what are Mexico's chances to get out of the group? You already know the answer. Of course they're going to get out of the group. And of course they're going to lose in the round of 16. It's obvious. I feel like I can just skip this last section. Nothing has ever been more obvious. But just in case the historical trend gets bucked, Mexico on paper does have the talent to finish second place in this group, but there is a player in a team that I do think have a chip on their shoulder that I have not seen them have before, at least since they hosted the Euros, and that would be Poland. It is very tricky to discount a Mexican national team that controls the ball incredibly well and plays a disciplined, technical style that has been passed down for like 100 years in the Mexican national team. But Poland is a real threat, very real. And if Mexico can't score, Lewandowski can. And so I am going to pick Poland to finish ahead of Mexico in this group, and that means I've got Mexico finishing third. What are their chances to actually win the entire World Cup? Look, if that front three actually gets going, Mexico could finish in second and finally break their duck and get to a quarterfinal. I think semifinal and final are out of reach for this Mexican national team, but that front three does have a lot of quality at club level. If Tata Martino can unlock it, and those center backs from Liga MX can lock down with help from Edson Alvarez, and of course, the fabulous hair of Memo Ochoa, Mexico could go that distance. Poland is renowned for choking at international tournaments. Not renowned, that's unfair, but they've not done well at World Cups when they've made it, even when Lewandowski's there. So that gives Mexico a clear experience advantage. And those guys on that front three, they can put goals past anyone in the world if they're having a great day, and that could get them to the quarterfinals. So don't count Mexico out from threatening Argentina from grabbing a qualifying spot. They finished ahead of freaking Germany at the last World Cup, but I don't think it's gonna happen. If you've missed other parts of this playlist, well, it's right there. Give it a click, keep binging. You don't need to move anywhere. I've got you covered. The list just gets longer every day. Literally, we do one of these a day. We're on the countdown to the World Cup.